my family doesn't applaud me.
Why is that?
I think it's envy and jealousy. I think that, when you're black and you grow up at the time that we all grew up, it's okay for you to want that, but don't take it away from me. Recognize all of the struggle. The last day of Donnie's life was spent with me, and that's kind of like a hard thing to digest.
You might know Roberta Flack as the soulful voice behind Killing Me Softly, but try not to scream at the secrets from her life.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly with this song, telling my whole life with his words.
Behind the stage lights were silent wars of family feuds, heartbreak, and mental health battles she fought alone. Fame couldn't protect her from grief, betrayal, or the pressure of being a black woman breaking barriers in a world that tried to silence her.
Don't take it away from me. Recognize all of the struggle that I have made personally to be here.
Keep watching to unravel her story. Roberta Flack's story starts in a small town where opportunities for black children were limited. Born to parents who loved music, she was surrounded by songs at home. But outside, life was different. She was quiet and shy, often retreating behind her piano. Even with talent that was obvious to anyone who heard her play, she struggled with confidence.
I was very popular because I could play anything.
On the piano?
On the piano.
By the time she was a teenager, Flack's parents encouraged her to study classical music seriously. They saw her potential and pushed her to excel. But with talent came pressure. In the segregated South, the idea of a black girl making it in music felt almost impossible. She knew the world would be watching and judging her, but few understood the weight of those expectations. Her early secret wasn't scandal, it was fear. Fear that her music wouldn't be enough, that her voice wouldn't be heard over societal barriers. She often played in local churches and school events, and while people praised her, she worried it wasn't enough. In private, she practiced for hours, perfecting every note, but never showing the doubt she felt inside. Moving to Washington, D.C. for college, Flack encountered a wider world, but also a new set of challenges. Performing in local nightclubs, she found herself in spaces that were not always welcoming. Sometimes audiences were skeptical of a young black woman trying to blend classical training with jazz and soul. She also had to navigate the music industry's early biases, where producers and agents doubted that someone so different could sell records. Even at this stage, Flack carried a personal secret: the loneliness of being misunderstood. Friends and colleagues saw her talent, but few saw the vulnerability beneath it. She didn't talk much about it, keeping her worries private, even from those closest to her. This quiet strength would define her career, allowing her to push through barriers that might have broken someone else.
But my mother used to look at me and shake her head because she didn't understand my mind, I've always been, in my family, considered sort of different.
By the late 1960s, her work caught attention. She was noticed by Les McCann, who recognized the depth and subtlety in her voice. But even as opportunities grew, the hidden pressures remained. Critics questioned whether her style, smooth, jazz-influenced, and emotional, would ever resonate with a mainstream audience. She faced moments of doubt, moments that would later be revealed in interviews as some of the hardest times of her early life. A well-known jazz pianist and singer named Les McCann heard her perform. He was so impressed by her voice that he felt deep emotion. Flack's secrets at this stage weren't scandals or gossip. They were private battles with confidence, identity, and expectation. She learned early on that success wouldn't come without sacrifice, and that the world would never see the full story of her struggles behind the music. Even now, decades later, those early hidden pressures shaped the artist we came to know. A voice full of emotion, a presence of quiet power, and a life layered with private battles the public rarely imagined. By the late 1960s, Roberta Flack had left college but hadn't yet broken into the big music scene. She started performing in Washington, D.C. nightclubs, jazz lounges, and small venues where audiences were tough and unforgiving. Some nights the rooms were empty. Other nights, she played for people who didn't understand her style. The mix of jazz, soul, and classical training made her unique, but that same uniqueness caused problems. Promoters often didn't know how to market her, and audiences sometimes reacted coldly. She started her career in the 1970s, playing jazz in a nightclub in Washington, D.C. Her early gigs were full of secrets and frustrations. She was often underpaid, despite being asked to perform every night. In interviews later in life, she revealed that some club owners tried to pressure her to change her style to fit what they thought audiences wanted. Flack resisted, holding on to the authenticity of her sound, even when it meant losing money or stage time. That determination, while admirable, put her at odds with the people who controlled bookings and publicity. One of the most hidden struggles during this period was Flack's quiet fight with self-doubt. Even when audiences responded positively, she questioned if she could ever be accepted by the mainstream music industry. There were nights she went home after performing and cried alone, worried her efforts weren't enough. Behind the calm, sophisticated demeanor people later saw, there was a young woman wrestling with uncertainty and the pressure to prove herself. Around this time, she recorded her first singles, though they didn't make much of a splash. Labels were unsure how to handle her voice, often categorizing it as too soft or too sophisticated for commercial radio. Some executives suggested she add more pop elements. Others wanted her to go fully jazz. Flack refused to compromise, which kept her from early commercial success, but preserved the artistry that would define her career.
Roberta clashed with her labels over everything from music direction to album art. She wasn't afraid to push back against the cookie-cutter pop industry machine that tried to box her in.
There were also hidden controversies about how she was treated as a black female artist. Stories later shared in interviews reveal that she was sometimes patronized or dismissed during meetings with record executives. They doubted her marketability simply because she didn't fit the expected image of a female soul singer in the 1970s. These experiences left lasting scars, but they also fueled her determination to succeed on her own terms. By 1969, Roberta Flack's performances started drawing attention from important figures in the music world. Jazz pianist Les McCann and other collaborators began recognizing her rare ability to combine emotion with technical skill. But even with this recognition, she remained largely under the radar. The secrecy of her early career struggles of long nights, financial stress, and subtle discrimination remained unknown to the public. She didn't want to take that risk. Then, another big problem came when the IRS told her she owed nearly $1 million in taxes. Flack's early career shows that fame didn't come instantly. Behind her smooth voice was a series of hidden battles, doubts about her style, resistance to industry pressure, and the challenge of breaking into an industry that didn't know how to embrace someone different. Those nights in dimly lit clubs, playing for tough crowds, and facing subtle prejudice shaped the artist she would become, and laid the groundwork for the controversies and secrets that would later surface as her fame grew.
While the public loved her for being different, the reality was that this very resistance made her career more difficult than it needed to be.
In 1969, Roberta Flack recorded what would become her breakthrough album, First Take. She worked with producer Joel Dorn, who saw the quiet brilliance in her voice that others had overlooked. The album included songs like The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face and Gone Away, tracks that would later define her sound. But the journey to releasing this record was far from easy. Record executives debated endlessly over the track list, worried that her slow, emotive style wouldn't appeal to mainstream audiences.
Big break came in 1969 with the release of The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, a song that would go on to define her career.
The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face was a secret weapon in itself. Flack originally recorded it for a small independent audience. She didn't expect it to reach millions. Initially, some producers thought the song was too intimate, too soft for radio. They pushed for more upbeat tracks, believing listeners needed energetic numbers. Flack stood firm, insisting that authenticity mattered more than immediate commercial appeal. This insistence would become a recurring theme in her career. She would rather risk obscurity than compromise her artistry. The album's release marked the beginning of more subtle controversies. While critics loved her voice, radio stations were hesitant to play her music. Some DJs admitted that the songs were too sophisticated or too slow for casual listeners. The secrecy of her early struggles was largely unknown to fans. Everyone saw the polished album, but few knew the late nights of recording, the debates with producers, and the anxiety that accompanied each play. Flack herself admitted in interviews that she feared failure even as her career took off. Her rise to fame was punctuated by Grammy complications. When The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face began climbing the charts, Flack's team faced internal battles at the recording label over how to promote her. There were arguments about marketing strategies, radio interviews, and even photo choices for the album cover. Some executives wanted a sexier, more marketable image. Others wanted to highlight her sophistication and artistry. Flack's quiet insistence on authenticity created tension behind the scenes, though it ultimately preserved the integrity of her music. By 1973, the album was gaining mainstream attention, and Flack won the Grammy for Record of the Year in 1973.
Here I was winning Grammys and sitting with Stevie Wonder and hanging with Diana Ross.
Yet even this victory came with behind-the-scenes whispers. Some industry insiders questioned whether she deserved the award over other big names that year, and there were murmurs of politics influencing the nominations. Flack, ever private, chose not to engage publicly with the rumors, letting her music speak for itself. Still, the secret pressure and scrutiny she faced during this period shaped her understanding of fame. It was not just about talent, but about navigating an industry full of hidden agendas. At the same time, her personal life remained largely invisible. Flack's focus on her music meant that most people didn't know the sacrifices she made, including long nights away from family and the loneliness that accompanied touring. She also faced subtle discrimination in an industry dominated by male executives, who often underestimated her. These unspoken battles added to the mystery surrounding her life, creating a contrast between her serene public image and the challenges she faced in private. By the mid-1970s, Roberta Flack had established herself as a respected artist. Yet the combination of Grammy politics, industry pressure, and personal sacrifices highlighted that success wasn't just about talent. Behind every smooth note and soulful performance were hidden stories of struggle, debates, and subtle controversies. These early secrets would continue to follow her, influencing how she approached fame, collaboration, and the intense scrutiny of her growing public persona. By the mid-1970s, Roberta Flack was no longer just a solo artist. She was becoming a force in duets. Her collaboration with Donny Hathaway changed the game. Hathaway, a brilliant musician in his own right, had a soulful depth that matched Flack's emotive style. Their first duet projects, including hits like Where Is the Love and The Closer I Get to You, became instant classics. But behind the music, there were tensions that most fans never saw. Recording duets wasn't just about blending voices. Flack and Hathaway had strong creative ideas, and sometimes they clashed with producers over arrangements. While their chemistry was undeniable, the studio sessions were intense. Flack was meticulous, often requesting multiple takes to get the perfect emotional nuance. Hathaway, on the other hand, had a more improvisational style. This sometimes led to frustration, but the resulting music carried a richness born from those struggles.
Collaboration with Donny Hathaway produced other great hits like You've Got a Friend and the classic duet Where Is the Love.
The release of Killing Me, softly with his song. In 1973 became another defining moment. The title track, written by Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel and inspired by Lori Lieberman's experience, was a global sensation. However, the journey to its release had secrets that weren't widely known. The song's intimate tone initially made some executives nervous. It was quiet, emotional, and unlike the pop hits dominating the charts. Flack and her team fought to release it exactly as she intended, resisting suggestions to add background instruments or change the tempo for radio friendliness.
Oh, do something. I said, well, I have this new song I've been working on. So I started, strumming my pain with his fingers.
With commercial success came public scrutiny. The sudden fame intensified rumors and speculation. There were whispers in the industry about Flack's personal life, particularly her private relationships and emotional struggles during the height of her career. While she rarely addressed these rumors, they fueled a mystique that surrounded her. Fans saw a composed, elegant performer, but few knew about the exhaustion from constant touring and the emotional toll of recording deeply personal songs night after night. Flack's collaborations with Hathaway also revealed hidden pressures. Hathaway's mental health challenges were largely private at the time, and Flack often had to navigate recording schedules and performances with sensitivity.
I believe his death was a suicide.
I know it was. There was nobody in the room with him at all. Very, very clear that he was having emotional problems.
The music industry wasn't always accommodating to these struggles, which added another layer of complexity to their partnership. Despite this, their duets achieved remarkable success, winning Grammys and topping charts, proving that even behind hidden tensions, great artistry could emerge.
Producer Joel Dawn, Roberta Flack.
Interestingly, the success of Killing Me Softly also sparked disputes over song credits and royalties. Some behind-the-scenes conflicts arose between writers, producers, and the label. Flack stayed out of most of these battles, preferring to focus on her performance. Yet these hidden industry arguments reveal the complexity of her career. Fame wasn't just about singing beautifully, it involved navigating contracts, credit disputes, and often unseen power dynamics. By the late 1970s, Roberta Flack was firmly established as both a solo star and a duet artist. Her ability to handle delicate music, manage tense collaborations, and maintain her private life created an aura of both mystique and intrigue. Fans celebrated her talent, but the secrets of her studio battles, behind-the-scenes tensions, and personal sacrifices were largely hidden, making the public image of Flack as graceful and effortless, an even more remarkable feat. While Roberta Flack's voice was celebrated worldwide, her personal life remained mostly private. She was known to keep her relationships out of the public eye. But over the years, some details have emerged about the challenges she faced off stage. One significant aspect was her deep connection with Donny Hathaway, which went beyond music. Their friendship and professional bond were well documented, and while rumors of romance circulated, Flack herself never publicly confirmed any romantic relationship. What's clear is that their closeness impacted her emotionally, and Hathaway's tragic death in 1979 left a lasting mark on her life.
I know it was. There was nobody in the room with him at all, and he had just left my house.
Flack's personal struggles were not limited to heartbreak. Touring and recording demanded long hours, often leaving little room for personal downtime. She spoke in interviews about the exhaustion that came with constantly being on, especially during the 1970s when she was producing hit after hit. Despite the glamour, she faced immense pressure to maintain perfection in both performance and public appearance. Fans often assumed her life was seamless, but the reality was different. She had to balance emotional well-being, creative decisions, and the expectations of a music industry that was often unforgiving. Romantic relationships outside of Hathaway were kept very private. Flack was reportedly selective about the people she allowed into her inner circle, which sometimes fueled speculation in media and fan circles. The secrecy was intentional. She wanted her music to be the primary focus, not her love life. However, sources close to her reveal that she experienced moments of intense vulnerability, particularly when personal and professional pressures collided. It was a pattern common among many performers of her era, yet she maintained a dignity that few public figures achieved. Mental health was another hidden struggle. Witnesses and collaborators have described Flack as deeply sensitive, attuned to emotional subtleties in both music and life. The highs of her career came with lows, including bouts of anxiety and stress from public scrutiny. Handling fame without losing her sense of self was a delicate balancing act, made more complicated by the loss of close friends and colleagues like Hathaway. While she never publicly detailed these experiences extensively, those who worked with her attest to the quiet resilience she maintained through personal and professional hardships. Flack also faced scrutiny related to her public image. Being a black woman in a predominantly male-dominated industry meant navigating both gender and racial biases.
And I think that, when you're black and you grow up at the time that we all grew up, it's okay for you to want that, but don't take it away from me. Recognize all of the struggle.
She was admired for her talent, but had to constantly prove her artistic vision in the studio. Executives sometimes questioned her creative choices, offering advice that clashed with her personal instincts. These behind-the-scenes struggles were rarely covered in the media, giving the impression that her success was effortless, when in reality, it was the result of careful negotiation, emotional intelligence, and persistence. Throughout these years, Roberta Flack maintained an aura of mystery, choosing to share glimpses of her personal life sparingly. Her private struggles with love, loss, and mental well-being were integral to the depth and emotion she conveyed in her music. The audience often felt a personal connection to her songs, unaware that many were shaped by real-life experiences of sorrow, resilience, and quiet triumphs. Her ability to channel personal hardship into timeless music remains one of the defining features of her career. By the 1980s and 1990s, Roberta Flack had established herself as one of music's most respected voices. Hits like Killing Me Softly with his song and duets with Donny Hathaway had earned her multiple Grammy Awards. Yet her later career brought a mix of continued acclaim and quiet controversies. Flack became increasingly selective with public appearances and interviews, sparking speculation. While many assumed it was personal choice, some insiders suggested it reflected lingering tensions with record labels and industry pressures she had faced throughout her career. Despite scaling back, Flack continued to perform and record. Her albums received critical praise, though commercial success varied from her peak years. She prioritized artistic integrity over trends, a stance that sometimes frustrated record executives and delayed album releases, fueling whispers that she was difficult to work with. In truth, these controversies reflected her refusal to compromise her artistry, a decision that earned the respect of serious musicians. Some movie producers even wanted her to play the legendary blues singer Bessie Smith in a film. But suddenly, Roberta stopped making music. Awards and recognition continued to follow her. She won Grammys for solo songs, collaborations, and live performances, testifying to her ability to connect deeply with audiences. Behind the applause were late-night studio sessions, tireless rehearsals, and emotional investment that few outside her circle knew. Collaborators often remarked on her exacting standards, which could be intimidating but elevated every project. Flack also mentored younger artists, guiding them through technical and personal challenges. Though she kept this private, consistent with her lifelong preference to separate personal life from public attention. Controversies often stemmed from perceptions of secrecy. Fans and media misinterpreted her quiet nature as aloofness, but those close to her described a woman committed to honesty in her art and loyal to those she trusted. Rumors about relationships, creative conflicts, or struggles occasionally surfaced, but she consistently chose privacy over sensationalism, cultivating a mystique that intrigued fans. By the 2000s, Flack's influence was undeniable. Her songs continued to resonate across generations, covered by new artists and featured in film and television. Though she stepped back from public attention, her legacy remained strong. After a long battle with ALS, she passed away in 2025.
George, Roberta Flack, the Grammy-winning singer of Killing Me Softly with his song and other major hits, has died. She died at her home surrounded by her family. Flack announced in 2022 that she had ALS, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Her voice may have grown quiet, but her impact on music, culture, and the hearts of listeners worldwide never dimmed.